At 94, Clint Eastwood stands as a pillar of American cinema, an enduring symbol of rugged masculinity, radical individuality, and traditional values. In a career spanning more than 7 decades, he transformed himself from a taciturn cowboy in the Dollars Trilogy to an Oscar-winning master director with works like Unforgiven and Million-Dollar Baby. Yet, just as he was about to enter the twilight of his life, Eastwood publicly revealed a surprising list of people he hoped would not attend his funeral. Why would a legend of this caliber, celebrated for his resilience and talent, devote his final thoughts to drawing boundaries and exclusion rather than seeking reconciliation or universal acceptance? Is this list simply a reflection of public ideological clashes with figures like Michael Moore and John Wayne? Or does it mask deeper personal wounds, such as his complicated relationship with Sandra Locke? Was Eastwood's final, albeit hypothetical statement a final act of defense of the integrity and independence he had built throughout his life? Or was it the tragedy of a man determined to bury unresolved pain? Let's explore the brilliant journey and the hidden corners of fate that led to this defiant final statement. Clint Eastwood, full name Clinton Eastwood Jr., was born on May 31, 1930, in San Francisco, California. Growing up during the Great Depression, he lived in a modest family and moved frequently due to his father's job as a steel worker. These childhood experiences forged a strong character and a tenacious work ethic, traits that would later shape his on-screen persona and personal philosophy. After graduating from high school in Oakland, Eastwood worked a variety of odd jobs as a logger, a lifeguard, and a gas station attendant before being drafted into the United States Army during the Korean War. His time in the military not only taught him discipline, but also introduced him to the world of film as he began to associate with aspiring filmmakers and actors at Fort Ord. Eastwood's foray into Hollywood was accidental but determined. He began his acting career in the 1950s with supporting roles, often uncredited, in B-movies. His breakthrough came in the late 1950s when he was cast as Rowdy Yates on the popular Western television series Rawhide. Although initially a supporting character, Eastwood's charisma and calm demeanor quickly made him a fan favorite. Eastwood's rise to international superstardom in the 1960s, particularly through iconic roles in Sergio Leone's Dollars Trilogy, A Fistful of Dollars, 1964, For a Few Dollars More, 1965, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966. These spaghetti westerns revolutionized the western genre and introduced Eastwood's trademark character, the laconic, morally ambiguous anti-hero with a steely gaze and minimal dialogue. Eastwood subsequently became synonymous with rugged masculinity, unyielding endurance, and frontier justice. He then cemented his status as a cultural icon in the 1970s, with his portrayal of Dirty Harry Callahan, a tough, uncompromising San Francisco cop. The Dirty Harry series, which began in 1971, captured the public imagination, combining action with social commentary and Eastwood's intense acting. In parallel with his acting career, Eastwood successfully transitioned to directing and producing, beginning with Play Misty for Me in 1971. He was hailed as a master director for his economical cinematography, emotional restraint, and ability to extract powerful performances from his actors. Two of his most notable works that cemented his place among the great filmmakers are 1. Unforgiven, 1992. The film earned him Oscars for Best Director and Best Picture. This work offers a rethinking of the Western genre, challenging the mythology that Eastwood himself helped to build and revealing a more complex, morally profound story. 2. Million-Dollar Baby, 2004, winning his second pair of Oscars, Best Director and Best Picture. At 74, he became the oldest of 18 directors to have directed 2 or more Best Picture winners. In addition, Eastwood has explored diverse themes such as heroism, identity, redemption, and the American experience in films such as Letters from Iwo Jima, 2006, and Gran Torino, 2008. Aside from his artistic fame, Clint Eastwood has had a multifaceted life, including his roles as a composer, composing music for many of his films, and a politician, serving as mayor of Carmel by the Sea, California, from 1986 to 1988. Clint Eastwood's personal life is known to be complicated. He has had 2 official marriages. His first was to Margaret Neville Maggie Johnson, 1953 to 1984. Although the marriage lasted for decades, it survived many challenges, including Eastwood's long absences from filming and his reputation for extramarital affairs. Maggie Johnson is said to have embraced an open marriage. They have 2 children, Kyle Eastwood, born 1968, who later became a jazz musician, and Allison Eastwood, born 1972, an actress and director. His second marriage was to Dina Ruiz, a television news anchor more than 30 years his junior, from 1996 to 2014. They had a daughter, Morgan Eastwood, born 1996. In addition to his children from this marriage, Eastwood is known to have had at least 5 other children by various women, although he has never publicly confirmed his total number. Among them are Kimberlyn Eastwood, born 1964 from his relationship with Roxanne Tunis, and Scott Eastwood, born 1986, who has built a successful acting career and bears a strong resemblance to his father. Eastwood's family relationships are large and sometimes complicated, but he has largely kept his private life private. Alongside his marriage, his 14-year romantic relationship with actress Sondra Locke, 1975 to 1989, played a pivotal role in both of their careers. Locke co-starred with Eastwood in several films, including The Outlaw Josie Wales, 1976, The Gauntlet, 1977, and Sudden Impact, 1983. However, the relationship ended in a bitter and public legal battle, marking a painful chapter he would rather bury. Ironically, for a man who spent his life cultivating an image of a solitary, self-reliant, and private man, his final act of establishing his legacy was a public declaration of exclusion and conflict. His funeral list, revealed at the age of 94, was more than a personal preference. It was the final anatomy of the ideological and emotional battles that had shaped him. The defining event in this context is the list of people Eastwood did not want to attend his funeral due to ideological clashes, long-standing personal animosities, or deep philosophical differences. The list includes 6 prominent names: John Wayne, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hanks, Spike Lee, Michael Moore, and Sondra Locke. According to public information, this exclusion was a way for Eastwood to remain true to his principles until the end, a final act to draw a clear line between those he respected and those he did not. The most striking anomaly in this list is that it includes 2 deceased people. John Wayne died in 1979, and Sondra Locke died in 2018. This immediately shows that the list was not a mere logistical arrangement, but a symbolic act. If John Wayne is the symbol of an outdated Western cinematic ideology that Eastwood has spent his career revising and challenging the myth, his exclusion is philosophical. By contrast, the exclusion of Sondra Locke, who died before Eastwood, is more deeply emotional and personal. The inclusion of the deceased on the no-invite list suggests that Eastwood is seeking a spiritual or karmic cleansing in his final rites. This list can be categorized into 2 main conflicting groups: ideological, political, Wayne, DiCaprio, Hanks, Lee, Moore, and personal, emotional. 1. Ideological conflict, Hollywood hatred, political preference. Eastwood has long described himself as a libertarian with conservative leanings. He is known for his uncompromising attitude and efficient work style. John Wayne. The feud between the 2 Western icons was long-standing. Wayne disliked Eastwood's morally ambiguous characters, believing them to tarnish the nobility of the American cowboy. Wayne's rejection of an Eastwood script as perverted reinforced the ideological divide over what defines American heroism. Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. Eastwood was reportedly uncomfortable with DiCaprio's climate activism and overt political stance, seeing it as emblematic of the hypocrisy of the Hollywood elite. As for Tom Hanks, a man considered an all-American father and a Democrat, His presence was seen by Eastwood as out of step with the harshness of his own life. Spike Lee. The most public clash occurred in 2008 when Lee criticized Eastwood for the lack of representation of black soldiers in World War II films. Eastwood responded that historical accuracy dictated casting decisions and accused Lee of creating unnecessary controversy. Eastwood, who values control and dislikes being questioned, considered Lee a divisive figure who represented performance activism that he could not tolerate. Michael Moore. This was the most obvious contrast. Moore criticized Eastwood's American Sniper, 2014, for glorifying violence and promoting jingoistic views. Eastwood responded with a threat, he later said was joking, that he would kill Moore if the documentary filmmaker came near him with a camera. This contrast reflects Eastwood's reverence for American servicemen and their Second Amendment right to bear arms, as opposed to Moore's anti-war, anti-gun stance. 2. Personal conflict. Pain that's hard to heal. The most emotionally charged name on the list is Sondra Locke, who was Eastwood's romantic partner and frequent co-star for 14 years. The relationship ended in a bitter and public legal battle. Locke accused Eastwood of emotional abuse and career sabotage, filing multiple lawsuits that lasted for years. Although Eastwood settled out of court, the rift between them never healed. And Eastwood is said to have said that if there was a way for spirits to haunt the living, he hoped Locke wouldn't linger around his final rites. Locke's presence, even in spirit, would bring up too many unresolved emotions and be a reminder of a painful chapter in his life that he would rather bury. This incident stems from the core of Clint Eastwood's nature, a man obsessed with control, efficiency, and independence. 1. Personal causes, psychology, and decisions. Eastwood has always been a highly disciplined person who worships health and efficiency. His career was driven by a sense of urgency and precision after the early death of his father, at age 64. This made him impatient with inefficiency or unnecessary emotional complexity. This list is a personal decision to assert absolute control, even over his own destiny. 2. Social causes, public image. Eastwood has carefully cultivated an image of a quiet, reserved man. The political opponents on the list, Moore, DiCaprio, Lee, Hanks, all represent a part of Hollywood that Eastwood finds noisy, hypocritical, and overly politicized. Their exclusion is a final act of resistance against politically correct culture and media aggression. 3. Systemic cause. Life philosophy. Throughout his career, Eastwood has played characters who represent individual justice and anti-bureaucracy. The list is a systemic event in his life philosophy. He refuses to give those he opposes the opportunity to use his funeral as a platform to turn it into a public spectacle or a virtue-signaling event. The climax was the public announcement of the list. It turned the anticipated death of an icon into a final act of ideological debunking. In this way, Eastwood ensured that his story would end not with a false reconciliation, but with an affirmation of his uncompromising character and beliefs. The list was a final script, a final act of decision that no one could change or misinterpret. The main consequence of this blacklist was that it reinforced Clint Eastwood's image of mystery and steadfastness. Instead of being a conventionally sad event, his supposed funeral became a metaphor for America's long-running cultural and ideological wars. For the public, the exclusion of Sondra Locke, a painful chapter in his life, reaffirmed his preference for privacy and emotional burying. Despite having a large and complicated family of at least 8 children, Eastwood has always maintained a low profile, and the exclusion of Locke reflects his final wish to keep unresolved feelings from interfering with his final rites. Clint Eastwood's funeral blacklist was not an act of cowardice, but a final philosophical statement from an artist who spent his life fighting for independence and authenticity. His life and career, from Western anti-hero to master director, revolved around drawing clear moral lines and rejecting compromise. The greatest tragedy is not the feuds, but the inevitable loneliness of an individual who remains resolutely outside of any consensus. even in his final moments. This act of exclusion is a final reflection of his image, a man of rugged individualism, who would rather keep the hard edges of his life than accept false praise. The truth revealed through this list raises a profound question. Is the act of drawing clear lines at the end of the life of an icon who has lived for 7 decades a testament to the immutability of human nature, or a final recognition of the terrible cost of absolute independence in a world that increasingly demands harmony? Either way, Eastwood's list, with its blend of politics, culture, and personal pain, makes for an unforgettable finale, a powerful and defiant echo of the past.